I still remember the spring morning when I finally decided to dig up that old, rusty tin box I had buried in the far corner of our backyard 50 years ago. A box that had been my secret companion through the most confusing, bittersweet, and transformative years of my youth. And as I bent down, the earth crumble between my fingers, the smell of fresh soil mingling with the faint scent of lilacs from the hedge near the fence, I was immediately flooded with memories I had tucked away in the corners of my mind for decades. Memories of a young girl named Eleanor, full of hope, mischief, and reckless joy, who once ran barefoot across this very yard, her laughter echoing against the wooden fences and the creaking porch steps. Memories of afternoons spent with my friends in the sun-drenched fields behind our house, and of evenings where my mother would call us in for supper, the aroma of roasted chicken and fresh-baked bread drawing us like magnets into the warm, bustling kitchen, where my father, always busy with his work at the local garage, would tell us stories while my younger brother, mischievous as ever, would sneak spoonfuls of pie before anyone noticed, and inside that box lay the most delicate, fragile parts of my heart. Letters I had written to my first love, a boy named Thomas. Letters I never had the courage to send, each one brimming with confessions of longing, dreams, and unspoken fears. And I could remember the day I met him at the county fair in the summer of 1968. How we had both reached for the same pink cotton candy on a hot July afternoon, our fingers brushing lightly. And how we had laughed awkwardly, our cheeks flushed with the innocent thrill of first attraction, and how, under the sprawling branches of the old oak tree near the Ferris wheel, we had shared hours talking about everything and nothing, our voices mixing with the distant squeals of the roller coaster and the smell of popcorn in the air. And over the next year, Thomas became the sun around which my young world revolved, fleeting glances in the school hallway, secret notes passed during lunch breaks, shy smiles that seemed to carry entire conversations, and whispered promises that seemed so weighty in their importance that I could hardly sleep at night. And yet, life had its own plans, as it often does, and Thomas moved to another state for college, leaving me to navigate the turbulence of adolescence alone, carrying a secret ache in my chest that no one could see, not even my parents, who were preoccupied with long hours at the diner. And the small neighborhood of our town, familiar and comforting, suddenly felt impossibly large and empty. And I remembered the first letter I wrote him, how I had poured every ounce of hope, longing, and fear into the carefully penned words, sealing them in an envelope with trembling hands. And then, for reasons I can only now understand, shoved them into a drawer and locked it, afraid that sending them would somehow shatter the fragile world I lived in. And as I reached deeper into the box, my fingers brushing against the edges of the envelopes, I found tiny trinkets and mementos of our fleeting love, a pressed daisy from the fair, a tiny silver charm shaped like a heart that he had given me on my 16th birthday, a photograph of us laughing on a picnic blanket under the shade of a willow tree, and holding each of these items brought back the rush of emotions I had buried. For decades, the excitement, the fear, the thrill of possibility, and the quiet, aching sadness of love that never fully bloomed. And I thought about the path my life had taken, how I had married a kind and patient man named Harold, who loved me deeply and gave me 3 beautiful children. Yet how a small, unspoken part of my heart had always been reserved for the boy I never forgot. And as I looked at my granddaughter, sitting cross-legged on the grass, her eyes wide with curiosity, I could see the same spark of wonder I had carried at her age, and she asked softly, "Grandma, why did you bury it?" And I realized that the box had never been about hiding from the world. It had been about holding on to a piece of myself, a piece of my heart that I wasn't ready to share until now. And so I began to tell her, my voice trembling slightly, about Thomas, about the county fair, the secret notes, the letters I had written, the little charms and daisies, and how life's paths are never straight, but full of bends and surprises. About the lesson I learned that love in any form is never wasted, and that courage isn't about never feeling fear, but about facing it. Gently, with honesty and compassion, and as she listened, I saw her nod slowly, understanding more than her years should allow, and it struck me that in telling her my story, I had finally released the weight of regret that had lingered for half a century, that by opening up, I had not only honored my past but also offered her a gift, a glimpse into the tender, messy, beautiful reality of life. And then, to her astonishment, I admitted that after all those years, I had found Thomas again through a simple, unexpected Facebook message, how a mutual friend had mentioned my name, and how we had reconnected, our conversation tentative at first, filled with awkward pauses and laughter at how much time had passed, yet beneath it all, the same old affection quietly waiting to be recognized. And we decided to meet that very summer at the same fair where our story had begun, under the oak tree where we had first confessed our dreams. And I watched as he arrived, older now, hair streaked with gray, eyes crinkled from decades of smiles and worry, and yet still the same boy I had once known, holding a single daisy in his hand, the petals soft and yellowed like the ones I had preserved in my box. And as he approached me, I felt a warmth spread through my chest, a mixture of familiarity, nostalgia, and the simple, profound joy of being seen and loved after so long. And when our hands met, I could feel the years melt away, the laughter and tears of our youth mingling with the gentle peace of our present. And as we walked together through the fair, sharing stories of our separate lives, our families, and the twists of fate that had shaped us, I realized that the box had been waiting for this moment all along, that some things, no matter how long buried, return when they're meant to. And in that realization, I found a peace I had not known for decades, the quiet, glowing happiness that comes from embracing all of who you are, all that you have loved, and all that you still have the chance to cherish. And as we returned home later that evening, the sky painted in shades of amber and rose, I showed my granddaughter the box one last time, explaining that it was no longer a container of secrets, but a testament to life's beautiful complexity, to the power of patience, honesty, and hope. And I whispered to her softly, "Remember, honey, never be afraid to write your heart down, never be afraid to wait, but never forget to let love in when the time is right." And together we carefully closed the lid, not to hide it, but to preserve it as a symbol that life, love, and truth always find their way home. And in that moment, sitting on the old wooden bench with my hand clasped in Thomas's, watching my granddaughter's eyes sparkle with wonder and understanding, I felt the culmination of 50 years of dreams, longing, and hope, and knew that I had lived fully, loved deeply, and shared my story honestly, and that was more than enough. For sometimes the most important part of life is not the love we lose or the time we miss, but the courage to honor our hearts, to speak our truths, and to allow happiness to arrive in its own time, in its own beautiful, unexpected way. And as the evening breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of lilacs and freshly turned soil, I leaned back, smiling softly, feeling utterly complete, grateful for the journey, for the love that had returned to me, for the lessons learned, and for the chance to pass them on to the next generation, knowing that some stories, no matter how long hidden, have a way of coming home exactly when they should, and that the heart, if patient and brave, will always find its way back to joy, connection, and enduring love. And in that quiet, golden moment, I realized that I had finally come full circle, and that the secret I had buried 50 years ago had, in the end, led me to the happiest truth of all, that love, patience, and honesty are the greatest gifts we can ever give or receive, and they are never too late to be shared. And if you loved hearing my story, Make sure to subscribe to Grandmom's Truth for more stories of life, love, and lessons that touch the heart.